The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 23 is familiar to most of us. Henry Ward Beecher said it has brought more griefs to rest than all the world's philosophy. It is often used to comfort those facing severe personal trials, illness, or death. Its words speak with unusual simplicity and depth, presenting the Lord as both near and caring. For that reason, many have turned to the psalm in moments of uncertainty, finding in it the assurance that God provides, guides, protects, and remains present with his people. Psalm 23 begins by saying, "The Lord is my shepherd." The Lord as shepherd sustains his people. When David says, "The Lord is my shepherd," he is speaking personally and simply about God's care. In the same way a sheep depends on his shepherd, David depends on the Lord for guidance, protection, provision, and rest. This image would have been familiar in David's world, where kings and leaders were often compared to shepherds. The Bible also uses this picture often, from Genesis to the prophets, to describe how God leads and cares for his people. Jesus later takes this image to himself, calling himself the Good Shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. It is striking that God would use such a humble image for himself. Shepherding was often seen as lowly work, yet the Lord willingly cares for his flock, guiding, protecting, healing, and watching over them. David understood this well because he had been a shepherd himself. The Lord is my shepherd. The word "my" is important. David does not only say that God is a shepherd in general, he says my shepherd. He knows that God's care is personal, and knowing this brings comfort to those who know they cannot lead, protect, or provide for themselves. Because the Lord is his shepherd, David can say, "I shall not want." David trusted God to give him what he truly needed, and he chose to be content with the shepherd's care. Verse 2 shows us that the shepherd sustains his people by giving them rest. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. David's picture of green pastures and still waters shows that God knows what his people need and gently leads them to provision, peace, and refreshment. This rest is more than physical. When fear, trouble, or need unsettles us, the shepherd quiets our souls and brings us back to trust in him. The Lord as shepherd not only gives rest, he also leads. David says, "He refreshes my soul," showing that God brings his people back when they are weary, wandering, or in need of renewal. Like a shepherd caring for a sheep, the Lord restores what is broken and draws his people back to himself. He also guides his people along the right paths. God's guidance is not only about where we go, but about how we live. He leads us into a life that reflects his character and teaches us to walk in obedience, trust, and holiness. And he does this for his name's sake. God leads and restores his people because of who he is. God's care shows how great and good he is. This is all for his glory and not because we have earned it or deserve it. Verse 4 goes on to remind us that the shepherd's presence is one of the greatest gifts in the psalm. David says that even when he walks through the darkest valley, he does not need to fear because the Lord is with him. The valley shows us that following God does not mean we will never face pain, fear, or trouble. But the valley is not our final home. It is a place we pass through. The shepherd does not leave his people there. He stays with them, and his presence gives strength even on the hardest road. For Christians, this valley also points us to Jesus, the Good Shepherd. He did not only walk near death, he entered death itself for his people. Because he died and rose again, death is no longer the end of those who belong to him. We may still face suffering, fear, and even death, but we face them with Christ beside us. Death remains serious, but for the believer it has become only a shadow, because Jesus has already passed through it and conquered it. David's comfort is simple and powerful. You are with me. In the darkest part of the psalm, David no longer speaks only about God, he speaks directly to God. This shows that the shepherd is not far away or only watching from a distance. He is personally present with his people in their fear and in their trouble. His nearness brings comfort because he guides them, protects them, and reminds them that they are not alone. Verse 4 continues with the words, "Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." A shepherd uses these tools to protect and guide the sheep. The rod could defend the flock from danger, and the staff could gently guide a sheep or draw it back when it wandered. In the same way, God comforts his people by protecting them from evil, leading them in the right way and correcting them when they begin to stray. This correction is not harsh or careless. It is part of his loving care, because he keeps his sheep near to himself and leads them safely forward. The Lord is also shown as a generous host. David says that God prepares a table before him in the presence of his enemies. This means God does not always take trouble away immediately, but he cares for his people in the middle of it. He gives them what they need and allows them to know his peace even when danger is still around them. The prepared table shows God's personal care, his generous provision, and his strong protection. Enemies may be present, but they do not have the final word. The Lord is not afraid, hurried, or uncertain. He provides for his people calmly and kindly, showing that they are safe with him, even in difficult circumstances. David also says, "You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows." In David's world, oil was often used to welcome and honor guests. It could also refresh someone who was tired or weary. The overflowing cup shows that God gives more than just enough. He cares generously for his people and blesses them out of his goodness. The psalm ends with David looking to the future with confidence. "Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life." David trusts that God's care will not run out. The shepherd who has led, protected, and provided for him will continue to show him kindness every day. God's goodness and mercy are pictured as following behind him while the shepherd leads him ahead. This means David is surrounded by God's faithful care on every side. David also looks beyond his life and says he will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. His hope was not only that God will help him day by day, but that he will finally be with God forever. The shepherd who has led him through green pastures, dark valleys, and dangerous places will not abandon him at the end. He will bring him safely home to live in God's presence, where fellowship with the Lord will never end. So in summary, Psalm 23 shows us that the Lord is not far away from his people. He is near to them as the shepherd, guiding, protecting, feeding, restoring, and comforting them. He gives them what they truly need, leads them in the right way, and remains with them even in the darkest valleys. The psalm also shows the Lord as a generous host who provides peace and blessing even when enemies are near. From beginning to end, Psalm 23 reminds us that God's care is personal, faithful, and lasting. For Christians, this care is seen most clearly in Jesus, the Good Shepherd, who gave his life for the sheep and rose again. Because of him, believers can trust God in every season, facing suffering and death without final fear, and look forward to dwelling with the Lord forever.